October 1, 1930. The autumn air hangs heavy over Cambridge, thick with mist rolling off the River Cam and the promise of something greater than any of them can yet imagine. 5 young men arrive beneath ancient stone archways, their footsteps echoing across worn cobblestones polished by centuries of ambition. They come from different corners of Britain, different classes, different convictions, different secrets. To the world, they are simply brilliant students, scholars with sharp minds, restless curiosity, and futures gleaming bright before them. They laugh too loudly in candlelit rooms. They argue politics over cheap wine. They dream of changing the world in essays and whispered debates that stretch long past midnight. They are, for now, innocent, but history is already leaning toward them. Within lecture halls and secret societies, in quiet corners of libraries and shadowed courtyards, their paths begin to intertwine. Ideas ignite. Loyalties shift. Convictions harden. What starts as intellectual rebellion will evolve into something far more dangerous. They do not yet know that their friendship will become a pact, that their ideals will become weapons, that the choices they make within these ancient walls will ripple far beyond Cambridge, into war rooms, intelligence agencies, and the very heart of global power. One day their names will be whispered with suspicion. One day governments will hunt them. One day they will be remembered as architects of one of the most audacious espionage betrayals in history. But on this cold October morning in 1930, they are only 5 young men, stepping into the future. And the future is watching. In the turbulent 1930s, as the Great Depression ravaged economies, fascism rose menacingly across Europe, and the Soviet Union positioned itself as a beacon of ideological hope for disillusioned intellectuals, a small group of exceptionally gifted young men at Cambridge University made a fateful choice. They turned against their class, their country, and the empire they were born to inherit, becoming long-term agents for Soviet intelligence. This ring, Harold Adrian Russell, Kim Philby, Guy Burgess, Donald MacLean, Anthony Blunt, and John Cairncross, infiltrated the core of British power. MI6, the Secret Intelligence Service, MI5, Security Service, the Foreign Office, and even circles close to the monarchy. For over 2 decades, they funneled thousands of classified documents to Moscow, influencing the course of World War II alliances, accelerating the Soviet atomic bomb project, sabotaging Western covert operations, and ultimately shaking the foundations of Anglo-American trust during the early Cold War. Their betrayal was not driven by greed or blackmail but by fervent ideological conviction. They saw communism as the rational antidote to fascism and capitalist decay. Yet their actions inflicted profound, lasting damage. Lives lost, operations compromised, nuclear parity achieved sooner by the Soviets, and Britain's intelligence reputation tarnished for generations. This extended exploration delves deeply into their origins, recruitment, operations, personal lives, the slow unraveling of their ring, the dramatic defections, and the enduring legacy of one of history's most successful and devastating espionage networks. The ideological crucible. Cambridge in the 1930s. Cambridge University in the early 1930s was a hotbed of radical thought. The Wall Street crash of 1929 had exposed the fragility of capitalism. Unemployment soared, hunger marches crisscrossed Britain, and the rise of Hitler in Germany terrified the left. Many bright students, often from privileged backgrounds, gravitated toward Marxism as an intellectual and moral response. Key figures included Maurice Daub, a lecturer in economics at Trinity College and a committed communist who influenced generations of students. Soviet recruiters, operating through the NKVD, predecessor to the KGB, targeted such environments meticulously. They sought long-term agents, individuals who could burrow into the establishment, feign loyalty, and rise high. Anthony Blunt, 1907 to 1983, older than most, was a brilliant art historian and fellow at Trinity. From a respectable family, his father a vicar, Blunt embraced Marxism around 1933. He became a talent spotter, identifying potential recruits among the Apostles, an exclusive debating society, and others. Blunt's charm, erudition, and connections made him ideal for subtle persuasion. Guy Burgess, 1911 to 1963, flamboyant, openly homosexual in an era when it was criminalized, and a heavy drinker, was recruited early. Charismatic and witty, he moved effortlessly in elite circles. Burgess joined the Communist Party briefly but was instructed to sever visible ties. Donald MacLean, 1913 to 1983, son of a Liberal cabinet minister, was idealistic and intellectually sharp. He too joined communist circles and was approached for clandestine work. Harold Kim Philby, 1912 to 1988, Born in India to a British colonial family, his father St. John Philby was an Arabist and convert to Islam, arrived at Cambridge with a rebellious streak. In 1933-34, he traveled to Vienna during anti-fascist clashes, aiding communists and marrying Litzi Friedman, an Austrian communist. This experience solidified his commitment. John Cairncross, 1913-1995, a brilliant Scottish linguist from a modest background, was the outsider, but perhaps the most technically gifted. Recruited later, he excelled in languages and code-breaking contexts. Their Soviet handler, Arnold Deutsch Otto, a charismatic Austrian NKVD agent, emphasized deep cover. Abandon overt communism, build impeccable credentials, infiltrate key institutions. Yuri Modin, a later KGB controller, noted initial Moscow skepticism. Could these privileged Englishmen truly betray their own? Yet they did, providing what Modin called priceless intelligence. Infiltration, rising through the ranks. By the late 1930s, the five had positioned themselves strategically. Philby worked as a journalist for The Times, covering the Spanish Civil War, 1937-39, where he posed as pro-Franco while secretly aiding communists. In 1940, Burgess, already in MI6 circles, helped recruit him into Section D of SAS, MI6 precursor. Philby rose rapidly, heading counter-Soviet operations, Section 9, by war's end and becoming MI6's Washington liaison in 1949. Burgess joined the BBC, then MI5 and MI6 before the Foreign Office. His access included diplomatic cables and propaganda. Maclean entered the Foreign Office in 1935, serving in Paris, London and Washington. By 1944-48, he handled atomic cooperation as secretary to the Combined Policy Committee. Blunt served in MI5 during World War II, analyzing captured German documents, while maintaining his art career, later surveyor of the King's/Queen's pictures. Cairncross worked at Bletchley Park, linked roles in the Treasury, accessing Enigma-derived intel and early atomic data. From 1941 to 45 alone, estimates suggest they passed staggering volumes. Blunt 1,771 documents, Burgess 4,605, Maclean 4,593, Cairncross 5,832. Philby's contributions were immense but harder to quantify due to his position. Wartime secrets and atomic acceleration. During World War II, the Ring provided invaluable insights. They relayed Allied deception plans, Ultra, Enigma, intelligence summaries and details on German operations. Blunt helped identify Soviet agents from captured UBWare files, protecting the Ring. The most consequential impact was on the nuclear race. Maclean, with access to Manhattan Project details via Anglo-American committees, passed uranium production figures, bomb designs and timelines. Cairncross leaked early atomic insights. This intelligence helped Stalin avoid surprise at Hiroshima, 1945, and accelerated the first Soviet test in 1949, 4 years earlier than some Western estimates without espionage. Philby, in Washington, briefed on Venona, decrypted Soviet cables, and sabotaged operations like Albanian subversion, anti-communist infiltrations crushed due to leaks. Personal lives, complexity and dysfunction. Their private worlds were turbulent. Burgess and Maclean were notorious alcoholics. Burgess openly gay in a repressive era, Maclean volatile. Philby married 4 times, charming yet ruthless. Blunt remained discreetly homosexual, focused on art. Cairncross was quieter, academic. They maintained cover through denial and compartmentalization. Moscow sometimes doubted their material's authenticity, fearing disinformation. The unraveling, 1951 defections. Cracks appeared post-war. Igor Gouzenko's 1945 defection, Canada, exposed Soviet networks. Venona decrypts identified leaks, Homer equals Maclean. By 1951, suspicion focused on Maclean. Philby, in Washington, tipped Burgess, visiting, that Maclean was about to be confronted. On May 25, 1951, Burgess drove Maclean from his home. They boarded the Falaise to France, then vanished to Moscow. The missing diplomats scandal exploded, rocking Britain and straining U.S. trust post-Fuchs' arrest. Philby, suspected as third man, was interrogated but cleared insufficiently. He resigned quietly, resurfacing as a Beirut journalist, MI6 cover. Blunt and Cairncross, immunity and delayed exposure. Philby's 1963 defection, after Golitsyn's Leeds and Elliott's Beirut confrontation, triggered more. Blunt confessed in 1964 to MI5's Arthur Martin, granted immunity for full disclosure, due to royal ties, no prosecution. His role stayed secret until Thatcher's 1979 Commons statement. Cairncross confessed in 1964 after similar pressure, confirmed as fifth man later. He too received immunity. Philby's final act in Moscow years. In Beirut, 1963, Elliot confronted Philby. Partial confession followed. Fearing arrest, Philby fled January 23 aboard a Soviet ship to Odessa. Moscow granted asylum, colonel rank in KGB. He wrote My Silent War, 1968, advised on tradecraft, but never fully trusted, suspected triple agent rumors. Died 1988, buried heroically yet isolated. Profound legacy and damage assessment. The Cambridge Five's toll was immense. Operational losses, agents betrayed, networks dismantled e.g. Albania. Nuclear shift, Soviet bomb 1949, altering Cold War balance. Anglo-American rift, U.S. withheld nuclear secrets post-1951, CIA MI6 trust eroded for years. Institutional shock, exposed establishment vulnerabilities, prompted vetting reforms. Cultural impact, inspired Le Carre novels, films, The Crown episodes, endless debate on loyalty, ideology, class.